Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Michael Norton, who's an associate professor at Harvard Business School and the co-author of the new book, Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending. Mike, it's a real pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell me, can money buy us happiness?
Yes and no is the complicated question that academics often give. So it is true that having more money is not bad for your happiness. So there isn't some sort of point at which an extra $5 will ruin your life. But it's also the case that people really overestimate the impact of more money on their happiness. So we think that an extra $10,000 will make us 10,000 times happier, and it just turns out that it's not the case. What we try to do in our research is actually get people to stop thinking so much about how much money they have and start thinking a lot more about what they're doing with the money that they have. And then we try to tell people some of the ways that you usually are using your money, they're not wrong, but they're not optimal for getting the most happiness out of every dollar you spend.
Okay, let's focus on that, but in 1 minute. I just want to follow up on this because I also tell people the same thing. My day job is that I'm a financial advisor, and ironically I tell people don't harp so much on the amount of money, but rather think about what you can do with it. But people do really ask. They say, listen, it's true that money doesn't buy happiness, and you know, they've heard this in synagogue all the time or from their friends or their parents. But at the end of the day, they say, not having money causes a lot of problems. You can't buy the things that you need, and you can't pay for your kids' school. Wouldn't it just be easier if I had more money?
It's true to a point. So there's some very interesting research, at least in the United States, that suggests that there's a sweet spot at which making more money doesn't make you that much happier. And at least in the last data, on average, it's around $75,000 a year. So it's not, again, bad to make more than that for your happiness, but it doesn't do much more for you. But what that means is for people who are quite poor, if they make more money, they do get happier. So it is the case, exactly as you said, that if you can't afford the things you need, that is a source of stress and unhappiness, and getting more money does make you happier. The problem is then we think, well, why wouldn't more and more and more keep making us happier and happier? The problem is that when we make more money, we don't keep our lifestyle the same. We change our lifestyle entirely also. So yeah, we make more money now, but guess what? We also bought a new car and a bigger house, and our kids are in private school. And you tend to see that what happens when people make more and more money is they keep spending more and more, and they end up just as worried about money as they ever were. So one of the problems with making more money is we actually keep outstripping our means with our money, and we end up just as in debt and just as stressed as we ever were.
Okay, so it's kind of like chocolate. If you have none, you'll be very unhappy. If you get some, you'll be happy. But if you have way too much, then you might begin to feel a little bit sick.
Exactly, and maybe you should try doing something else than just accumulating chocolate all the time.
All right, so let's go over what's more important, what you were saying before, and I think what you spend your time researching. Is it more important how much or what we do with the money, and how do you know?
How much is, again, not unimportant. It's just not as important as people think. And the way that we try to figure out, you know, is it how much or is it what you do with it, is we do experiments, actually, where we give people money. And we basically tell them, I know what you want to do with the money, because it's what you always do with your money. But we're going to make you today, at least, spend it in a different way. And we're going to ask you before you do it how happy you are with how things are going, and we're going to make you spend the money in these different ways. And then afterward, we're going to ask you again, how happy are you with how your life is? And we're going to see, with all these different ways of spending your money, what is the way to spend it that makes you the happiest.
So isn't this a little bit manipulated when you tell people all that?
It is, I think. So it's funny because many of the ways that we tell people to spend their money, they don't want to. They say, no, that's not going to make me happy. So they actually disagree with us, but then once they do it, they feel better. So it's almost like, you know, you tell people they should exercise and they don't want to, but if you can get them to do it, after that they'll feel like they did a good thing and they'll feel good about themselves.
Okay, so actually the way that I came to you, Mike, is I saw your TED Talk, which was fantastic, and I recommend it to everyone. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put a link to it on the show notes at Goldstein on Gelt so people can also see it. But one of the conclusions I think that you made, and if I'm giving away the punchline, I apologize, was that people seemed to be happier when they used their money to help someone else. So is that only about helping friends, or is that fundamentally giving charity?
Again, it's a little bit of both. So one of the ways that we thought to really radically change the way people spend their money, it turns out that mainly what people use their money for is themselves. So, and if I told you right now, imagine you won $1 million, the first thing you think probably is, like most people, what could I buy for myself? And we said, well, if people usually spend money on themselves, what's the most radical departure that we could, when we give people money, that we could make them do instead? And we said, well, let's shift their focus from them to others and see if spending on other people can make them happy. And as you said, there is a difference between spending on a friend versus spending, let's say, on a charity that helps children in Africa, a very important cause but a very distant cause. Turns out that actually people are happier spending money on people they know and on close ties, and less happy spending money on distant charities. But both of those kinds of expenditures still make you happier than buying stuff for yourself.
Also, in your experiments, it seemed that the amount of money that you gave, which I understand because you have a limited budget, seemed like the amount of money to buy a Starbucks, which is very expensive these days, but it's not huge sums of money. What were the limits, or what were the amounts of money you tested?
Yeah, so one of the things that people often think that our research is saying is, if you've got $1 billion, give away a couple million and you can get happier. It's sort of like a Warren Buffett strategy. Mm-hmm. And we always try to say that it's not necessarily about big changes in your spending, that it can be as little as a couple of dollars a day. So it's not just for rich people, it's for everyone. It's for people who are just thinking about, what should I do with this $5 today? And we do see that spending as little as $5 on somebody else makes you happier over the course of a day. And if you spend that $5 on yourself, it's not bad, but it just doesn't do much for your happiness.
We are talking to Michael Norton, who's an associate professor at Harvard Business School. He recently came out with a book called Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending. Mike, one of the things that comes up in my day job, again, as a financial advisor, is the question of charity. I'm based in Israel, so a lot of my clients are American immigrants to Israel, and a lot of them follow the religious precept about giving 10% of their income. And in fact, what I've encouraged people on many occasions is to up that to about 20% of their income, which is more than 20 times, I think, what the sort of is average as a donation in America. And one of the things that I found is that the people who give a lot of money tend, A, to be more successful financially, and B, anecdotally, I would say they seem to be more happy. Do you think that when you get to kind of the extreme levels of charity that you can get to more extreme happiness?
So it's a funny thing. So if we look at our conversation earlier about the impact of income on happiness, we have a really long distribution of incomes, and we can see where the effect of more money starts to wear off on your happiness. And we would love to do the exact same thing with money given away to other people. So imagine that we had people who gave all the way from 1%, well, let's say 0%, to 100% of all their money to charity. And we looked at how happy they got. And we could really then see, is there a point at which giving too much away makes you unhappy or makes you even happier, as you're suggesting? The problem is that when we look in the data, nobody gives more than, let's say, 20%. So we never get high enough to see if it starts to wear off in some sense, because no one is that generous. Mm-hmm. But we do see in the data that we have, which matches your experience as well, is that at least within the ranges that people usually give, it pretty much is the case that giving more is better.
My theory on this, which actually I've developed recently, and maybe you can tell me if I'm onto something, is that when people give a lot of money, it's as if they are the trustee. I always thought the greatest job in the world would be if Warren Buffett came to me and said, "Hey, Doug, here's $25 billion. You're in charge of giving it out." Because then I'd have this awesome job of giving the money out, but it wouldn't be my money, so I wouldn't feel like I'm losing my own money. But I think that when people see their own charity, if they say, I'm going to give away 20% of my money, they don't even see it as theirs from the moment they earn it, so it doesn't hurt to give it. And all it is that they have this fabulous job as the trustee of of a major foundation.
I think it's a fantastic idea. So one of the barriers to giving money to charity is that in the moment, it feels extremely painful to give money to somebody else instead of buying stuff for yourself. So you have to overcome this reluctance to give instead of get something that you could use or you could eat or you could enjoy. And you're absolutely right that separating the payment from the giving is one way to make the giving even better. There's some interesting new financial products, at least in the States, where you can set aside at the beginning of the year money to give to charity, almost in like a retirement account, except it's a charity account. And then over the course of the year, you can draw from it whenever you want and give to whichever charities that you want. You can either set at the beginning of the year where the money's going to go, or you can basically send yourself a reminder every month to say it's time to give to charity. And we're starting to do research to see exactly as you suggested, is it the case that if you set it aside early and then you get to give every month, you almost feel like a wonderful giving person who just sort of does amazing things all the time, and it takes away the sting of having to give that money away.
That's interesting. Aren't these sort of donor-advised funds, that's what they're called? Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly, yes.
Don't they accumulate huge, huge sums of money that just sit there and actually don't get distributed?
Some of them do, and so actually the newer products are specific to individuals. So a person will set aside at the beginning of every year money that they then pretty much have to give to charity. So it's a little bit of a commitment device as well, which I think is quite important to both remind yourself to do it and also just encourage yourself to do it.
Okay. So when people are trying to turn their money into happiness, we focused about giving money away, and we're nearing the end of our time together, but are there any other tools that people can use to take their money and make themselves more happy?
There absolutely are. So one of the other great ways to get more happiness out of your money is to buy experiences instead of stuff. It turns out that experiences are much more emotionally evocative, both before we have them, while we have them, and then memories of them. So if you think about a trip you went on versus a TV you bought, it's pretty hard to think back to the memory of buying the TV and getting excited about it. And sitting and watching the TV every day for 5 hours is also not a great source of happiness. Now, the trip you went on, it feels like it's not a good investment because it was only a week. So the TV you have forever. So surely that's better than an experience that you only went on for 1 week, like a vacation. But the funny thing about being human is that memory is almost as important as the experience in the moment in predicting our happiness. And the memories of an amazing trip, with someone that we care about, make us so happy for so many years that it just completely dominates buying even the coolest, amazing flat-screen TV.
Huh. That sounds like a great advertisement for why people should buy cameras and take pictures, so that they do remember these experiences.
Yes, and the only trick there is if you take too many pictures during the experience, it's as though you didn't even have the experience because you were constantly posing for pictures.
Or you're annoying your kids. Hey, smile, come over here.
That's
smile.
Right.
All right. So just lastly, let's just quote the Beatles because they're always a good source of inspiration and philosophy. They say, "Money can't buy me love." Is that true?
It is really true. So one of the best ways to use your money is not to try to buy people's love, but to try to increase social connection with other people. So it's very, very important to think about using your money to the extent that you do on other people, as we suggest, but even the things you buy, make sure that they're with and for other people. So, for example, one of the purchases that we talk about is what pet should you buy? Let's imagine your kids want a pet or even you want a pet for yourself. And you're thinking, well, I'm going to get a goldfish because it's really cheap and I don't have to take care of it at all and I won't have to do anything. Or you could get a dog where you say, oh, my God, a dog, I'm going to have to walk it and clean up after. It's going to be the worst thing ever, and it's more expensive. Let's get the goldfish. It feels rational. One of the funny things that dogs do, though, is first off, they make us exercise, which is great. So they actually commit us to walking around every day, which is fantastic. And they also weirdly commit us to socializing because when we take our dog out, dogs like to talk to other dogs, and we have to talk to the owner of the other dogs. Mm-hmm. And if you think about as a leverage for getting to know other people, weirdly enough, a dog is a fantastic investment in meeting and getting to know other people, and we know that kind of social support and friendship is incredibly important for our happiness.
Wow. All right. That is fabulous wisdom. We've been talking to Mike Norton, who's at Harvard Business School and the co-author of the new book, Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending. Mike, we're just about out of time, but in the last few seconds, just tell me, how can people follow your work?
you can check out the new book, which is available everywhere on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And also, if you're interested in reading our research papers, you can find my webpage at Harvard. Just Google Michael Norton, Harvard Business School, and you can read all of my research papers, most of which put people to sleep, but maybe occasionally are interesting.
All right. Michael Norton, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.